The Subrosa Malum is a mid-level BMX bike from Subrosa. It features full chromoly pretty much everywhere that you need chromoly and a handful of aftermarket parts. We're going to go super in-depth about this bike. I'll tell you everything that you need to know about it, and it might get a little boring because I'm going to hit all the details. So let's get right into it. So you're probably here because I recommended the Subrosa Malum to you on the free bike recommendation that you requested. Ultimately, I want you to decide based on the information in my recommendation if this bike is right for you or not. Don't just blindly listen to me, make the decision for yourself. If you stumbled across this because of the YouTube algorithm, click here and request a free bike recommendation from me. This bike may not be right for you, it may be perfect for you, but you'll know when I send it to you on the recommendation. Just be patient, they take me a little bit of time to get done. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the Subrosa Malum. So I get a bunch of questions about this bike, and one of the most common ones is how much does it weigh? And this bike's going to weigh 26.2 pounds. The next question is how much does it cost? It's a $660 BMX bike as of right now. So sometimes the prices have been changing throughout 2021 and throughout 2020, but as of right now, it's $660. Can you upgrade it? So yeah, one of the cool things about the Malum and most mid-level BMX bikes like this is that they're fully upgradable. You can put on different handlebars, different forks, different cranks, different pedals, different wheels, tires, whatever you want, you can pretty much replace on this bike without any headache. Does it have any pegs? No, the Subrosa Malum doesn't come with pegs. It doesn't come with hub guards. You can buy universal pegs and universal hub guards and throw them on this bike if grinding's your thing, but out of the box, it doesn't come with any of that. The next question is, what options does it have? This bike only comes in a 21-inch top tube, and it comes in two color options. You need to choose between a matte trans teal and a black. As for the gearing, it comes with a Rant Party On sealed cassette, right-hand drive with a 9-tooth driver. This is going to make the gearing system 25/9. So now we need to talk about the sizing of this bike and make sure that this is the right size for you. Getting the wrong size bike, I promise it's going to make your life a lot harder. It's going to make progression a lot harder, so it's just much better to get the right size. And like I said, this bike comes in a 21-inch top tube, which makes it best for riders who are over 6 feet. Now, if you're absurdly tall, if you're like 7 foot or 6'8", 6'9", you probably want to get a 22-inch bike or something bigger in general. But for the most part, most people aren't that tall. So over 6 foot, this bike will be good for you. If you have a BBB, a big bike background, you ride mountain bikes, you ride dirt bikes, you're used to bigger bikes, you could get this bike if you're 5'9" and up, since the 21-inch will feel more comfortable for you since you've been riding bigger bikes. Now, in that frame geometry, top tube is just only one thing that's talked about there. You want to consider head tube angle, chainstay length, standover height, bottom bracket height, to figure out how the bike's going to affect your style. It's not nearly as important as top tube size, but it is important to look at and consider because it's going to affect your style and how the bike feels. The head tube angle on the Subrosa Malum is 75 degrees. This is right in the middle of the two extremes of head tube angles that we normally see. 76-degree head tube angle steep. This brings the front wheel closer to the back wheel, giving you a shorter wheelbase, making the bike feel more responsive and more snappy, while a 74 or a 74.5 degree head tube angle pulls the front wheel away from the back wheel, giving you a longer wheelbase and making the bike more mellow and more controlled. The 75-degree head tube angle on the Malum is right in the middle, so you're not going to have to worry about that. The next thing is the 9-inch standover height. For the most part, 9-inch standover is average. That's what most complete BMX bikes are. They're right around that 9-inch mark. If you get a smaller standover height, your seat's going to be naturally lower unless you raise it, and it clears more room for no-footed cans, tail whips, and just feet tricks, while your taller standover height puts the seat up higher in your legs so that you can pinch it easier for bar spins or grab the seat for toboggans. It's a little bit more of a preference thing, and it goes towards your style. Now, the chainstay length is 13.2 inches. And with a 13.2 inch chainstay, that means your back wheel on center of the chainstay is 13.2 inches from the bottom bracket. And when you have a longer chainstay, it's doing the same thing as a mellow head tube angle, increasing that wheelbase and giving you more of a mellow and controlled feeling bike. So 13.2 inches is a little bit for me, my frame of reference is 13. I say 13 is average, and then so anything longer than 13 is a longer chainstay, anything shorter is a responsive chainstay. And so 13.2 is technically on the longer side, which makes it a good fit for riders who are over 6 foot riding this 21-inch BMX bike. For a really tall rider, like someone like me who's 6'4", this 13.2 might feel almost too short. The bike might pick up too fast for manuals. It might feel too responsive, especially if you're inexperienced on the bike. Just a heads up, something to think about. Now, the bottom bracket height is 11.6 inches, which means that from the ground to the center of the bottom bracket, it's 11.6 inches up. When your bottom bracket's lower, your bike feels more stable, your feet are closer to the ground. It's going to feel like a scooter, while if the bottom bracket is higher, like 11.7, it's going to feel really responsive and really snappy. So 11.6 is right there in the middle of the two. You're not going to have to worry about it one way or another. Now, there are parts that go on this bike that also affect your style and affect the handling of the bike. The first one is going to be the forks. The forks have an offset of 30 millimeters, which means from the center of the fork leg, the front wheel bolts on 30 millimeters out. And just like the head tube angle, the farther away your front wheel is from your back wheel, the more wheelbase you have and the more mellow and controlled your bike is. So this 30 millimeters on the longer side. One of the longest forks you can get is 32. So this puts it as a more mellow feeling offset. Now, when you get your fork closer, like a 13 millimeter offset, your front wheel is pretty much right under you and you have a shorter wheelbase, so you have really responsive steering. Nose manuals are easy to pop into, but this bike has a longer offset, so it's going to feel a little bit more stable. The handlebars are 9 inches tall, which is an average thing. A lot of people are riding 9 to 10 inch handlebars right now. On complete bikes, most complete bikes are going to come with 9-inch handlebars. Now, when you think about this bike being for people who are over 6 foot, the 9-inch handlebar seems a little bit small to me. So you might want to consider upgrading to 9.5 or 10-inch bars. I'm really tall and I ride 9.25. I don't ride super tall bars, but I ride a top load stem that gives me some extra reach and forks with a taller stack height, so my bars are naturally taller. This bike won't necessarily do that. So if you feel hunched over, consider upgrading just because these bars are only 9 inches. The crank arms are 170 millimeters long. And what the length of your crank arm does is it's either a shorter crank arm gives you a shorter diameter when your cranks spin around, which makes your pedaling come around quicker. It gives you less leverage on the cranks. Longer crank arms give you more leverage on the cranks, but a larger diameter. So your legs travel a little bit more when you're doing a full pedal on a longer crank arm. 170 is dead in the middle. You can get up to 180. You can get down to 160. So 170 is right in the middle. And again, just like the lower handlebars, for a taller rider, this might feel a little bit uncomfortable. For someone over 6 foot, they generally want 175 or 180 millimeter crank arms. And the 170 might feel weird. So just like the bars, if you feel a little off when you're pedaling, something doesn't feel right, consider getting longer cranks. I'll talk about it in a minute, but these are 8-spline cranks. They're full chromoly, but they're heavy and chunky. And so this might be a good excuse to buy some aftermarket 48 spline cranks. So now we know how the geometry is, how this bike's going to feel. Let's talk about the quality and if this is a good enough quality bike for you, or maybe it's overkill. We're going to talk about the main components, which are the frame, forks, handlebars, cranks, and wheels. These are the most expensive parts to upgrade. So you want to make sure that these are solid because you don't want your main components breaking, because upgrading them is very expensive. It's a lot cheaper to replace junky pedals than it is a junky frame. All right, so the frame on the Malum is a full chromoly frame. It's not heat treated, it's not double butted, but it's full chromoly, which is the minimum requirement for a mid-level bike. The forks are also full chromoly forks. The bars are full chromoly 2-piece bars. The cranks are full chromoly 8-spline cranks, like I mentioned. Nothing really wrong with these except for the fact that they're pretty heavy. And the wheels are double wall Rant Squad with a pinned seam. A pinned seam is the weaker option for melding, I guess, the rim together. The most expensive option is a welded seam. You'll only find a welded seam on high-end aftermarket or high-end Sunday completes or high-end We the People completes. Pretty much really high-end bikes will come with the welded seam. It's not very common on complete bikes. And the pin seam for most riders is more than enough as long as the rim's double wall. Now, the parts package that this bike comes with is pretty solid. I was impressed to see that it came with the Shadow Surface pedals, which are aftermarket Shadow pedals, the Subrosa Rose top load stem. So I talked about it earlier that I ride a top load because it gives you a little bit of extra rise. This is great. It comes with fully sealed bearings, bottom bracket, headset, wheels, everything's fully sealed. That means the bearings are going to last a lot longer than if they were unsealed. It comes with the Shadow VVS 25 tooth sprocket. This is a CNC alloy sprocket. It's lightweight, it's strong, it's much better than the steel sprockets that you'll find on the lower quality Subrosa bikes. And then it comes with the Shadow Interlock V2 half link chain. I love this chain. This is the chain that I ride personally. It's lasted forever. And it's a good chain. So a lot of the bikes previous to this one come with a cheap 410 chain that's going to snap on you pretty quickly. This chain will probably last you forever, and it's like a $60 chain, which is crazy, but it lasts forever. So if you get this, you don't have to worry about snapping your chain and hitting your knee on there, and that's a big plus. Now, some of the lowlights is that it doesn't come with any pegs or hub guards. For the most part, everything on the bike is solid, but the one downfall that I found is not coming with pegs and hub guards, only because I feel like it wouldn't be hard for them to include at least 2 pegs and hub guards. But now if you want pegs and hub guards to grind, you've got to spend $40 to $80 on them, and that's a lot of money. So because of that quality, the main components, the parts package, this bike scores a 7.2 in quality. And this is out of 10. So 7.2 out of 10 is not bad. It's actually pretty impressive for a $660 bike. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But 7.2 quality is good. This puts it up there with the Kink Whip and the Subrosa Letum in terms of quality. Now, because of that quality, there's not necessarily a weight limit. Some of the lower quality bikes, I put a weight limit on there. I say, hey, don't get this if you're over this weight. But because of this, I don't think there's really a weight limit. You know, you're over 200 pounds, this bike's going to hold up for you. It's not going to break as quickly as a bike with a 4 quality score, for example. This is a solid bike, 7.2 quality score, no weight limit. Now, everybody rides their bike on different obstacles, and some bikes are better for certain things than others. The Subrosa Malum is going to be best for riding dirt and pump tracks and a little bit of park, but it scores highest in dirt. So it scores a 3.78 in street, it scores a 4.62 in park, and it scores a 6.15 in dirt. Now, these scores are made up by the Dougsterbob app, which is on the Google Play Store, the App Store, and there's a really complex algorithm that calculates these things based on the information about the bike. So it scores highest in dirt. It's going to be best for dirt riding. Now, like I said, everything is fully upgradable. So if you want to ride park on it, you just need to make some park-specific upgrades, and then you've got a bike that scores better for park. You can just make some street upgrades, hub guards, free coaster, pegs, and this bike will be better for street. But as it comes right out of the box, it's a 6.15 in dirt. Now, if someone came to me and said, what should I upgrade on the Malum? I would say, well, you should probably upgrade and get pegs and hub guards if that's something that's important to you. But since it doesn't come with pegs and hub guards, you might want to consider it. At least have 2 pegs on so you can learn double pegs or learn feebles or peg stalls or whatever. If you're riding dirt, I guess you don't need pegs, but if you're not, you need pegs. The second thing would be cranks. I mentioned these are the Rant Bangin 8 cranks, which are fine, full chromoly. They're going to last for you. And they're just going to be heavy, and they're not nearly as good as 48 spline cranks. 48 spline cranks are expensive, so be prepared to spend a good amount of money if you decide to purchase some. So overall, I do like the Malum. Before, I'd kind of put it in the same box as the Subrosa Letum, and I take back all the bad things I said about the Malum. The Letum, here's the thing. The Letum is a little bit cheaper than the Malum, and it comes with pegs, hub guards, and a sprocket with a bash guard. And when you look at that, you're like, well, what the hell? This is the same quality essentially, and it's got all these extra things added onto it. But then you look a little bit deeper, like I did in this video, and you see this has the interlock chain, it has a better stem, better sprocket, it has a lot of good things on it that kind of set it apart and make up for the lack of the pegs and the hub guards. So I do say this is a little bit higher quality than the Letum, but the core components are the same. The main components, the most expensive parts to upgrade, are about the same, and that's where the quality score really comes into play. So you could get this bike and add pegs and hub guards and a bash guard for your sprocket, or you could get the Letum and upgrade the chain and different things to make it like the Malum. It's really up to you, but the crazy thing is the geometries, for the most part, are the same. So there's not a huge difference in these bikes except for the parts package. One has pegs and hub guards and one has some better aftermarket parts. Now we're talking about the Malum, we're not talking about the Letum, but usually people get confused and look at the Malum or the Letum and they're like, well, which one's better? Like, what do I do? And that's the main difference. I just wanted to run you through that. So if you're not too concerned about the street specific stuff, the free coaster, the pegs, the hub guards, then the Malum's going to be a better choice quality wise. If you really want to ride street and you really want to focus on that kind of riding, the Letum's going to be a much better option because it comes with that stuff right out of the box. But I don't have anything bad to say about the Malum per se. It's on the more expensive side. The value score is not a 10, but it's still a decently good value score, and it's definitely not a ripoff. So I'd recommend the Malum for a handful of people. If this showed up on your recommendation, like it's Dougsterbob approved, it's a solid bike. And if you do decide to purchase this bike, this link here or the link in the description will take you to the bike shop that has it for the best price. Usually it's Dan's Comp, but sometimes it gets cheaper different places. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you guys to buy the bike from an untrustworthy bike shop and then you're like, oh my God, I just got scammed. I don't want that to happen. So make sure you're getting it from a trusted shop that has it for a good price. Now, YouTube thinks you're going to really enjoy this video that's on the screen right here. You can buy some Dougsterbob merch if you're interested and run to the comments and tell me which bike I should review next. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.